I never imagined I would find myself in such a scandalous situation, but there I was at 32, grappling with the fallout of my own careless decisions. It all started with my marriage to Warren, which had grown increasingly dull and emotionally distant over the years. Warren was always preoccupied with his work, leaving little room for intimacy or connection between us. I felt alone, yearning for the attention and support that seemed to have vanished from our relationship. The days blurred into a monotonous routine, and I found myself longing for something, anything, to break the cycle of loneliness. It was during a collaborative project at work that I began to bond with Harry, a co-worker who offered refreshing contrast to the monotony of my life. Harry was charismatic, with an easy laugh and a genuine interest in my thoughts and opinions. He made me feel valued in a way I hadn't felt in years. As we worked closely together, I found myself drawn to him, enjoying the way he made me feel alive again. Our conversations, initially professional, soon turned personal. We started texting outside of work, and the messages became increasingly flirtatious and inappropriate. I knew I was crossing a line, but the thrill of it all was intoxicating. To keep our exchanges a secret from Warren, I began using my work phone, convinced it was the safest way to hide what I was doing. Despite the exhilaration, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. A colleague once casually mentioned that company communications were closely monitored, but I shrugged it off, convinced I had nothing to hide. I told myself I was being careful, that I could manage this new connection without any fallout. But as our texting escalated, so did my reckless behavior. What began as innocent flirtation turned into something far more serious. Harry and I began meeting outside of work, and our relationship culminated in physical encounters. I justified it to myself as a means of escaping my stagnant marriage, a way to feel desired and alive again. All the while, I continued using my work phone for explicit messages, foolishly believing I was being discreet enough to avoid detection. Then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, in a moment of carelessness, I accidentally sent an explicit message meant for Harry to a work group chat. My heart dropped as soon as I realized what I had done. The message was graphic, and there was no way to undo it. I felt a wave of panic wash over me as I stared at my phone, hoping it was a bad dream. But it wasn't. The damage was done. I had exposed myself and my indiscretions to my colleagues, and there was no taking it back. The fallout was immediate. An investigation was launched by Human Resources, and I knew I was in deep trouble. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and dread. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and every notification on my phone sent a jolt of fear through me. I replayed the moment over and over in my head, wishing I could go back and undo it. But it was too late. The investigation revealed the extent of my inappropriate communications, and I was placed on administrative leave. Eventually, I was terminated from my job. The humiliation was unbearable, but it was only the beginning of the consequences. Warren discovered my infidelity through the company's investigation. The pain in his eyes when he confronted me was something I will never forget. He had trusted me, and I had betrayed him in the worst possible way. The confrontation was brief but devastating. He told me he couldn't stay married to someone who had so blatantly disregarded our vows. A few weeks later, he filed for divorce. My heart ached not just for the loss of my marriage, but for the realization that I had thrown away something precious for a fleeting thrill. I had destroyed the life we had built together, and there was no way to fix it. As the dust settled, I couldn't help but notice the double standards at play. Harry, who had been equally involved in the affair, seemed to face minimal consequences. He was reprimanded but allowed to keep his job, while I was left to shoulder the full weight of the repercussions. I struggled to rebuild my career, but the stain of the scandal followed me everywhere. I eventually found work, but it was at a much lower level than what I had before. The emotional toll of my decisions weighed heavily on me, and I spent countless nights reflecting on what I had lost. I thought about Warren, about the life we could have had if I had chosen to address the issues in our marriage instead of seeking validation elsewhere. I thought about my career, about the years of hard work I had thrown away for a moment of recklessness. And I thought about Harry, about how our affair had seemed so exciting at the time, but it ultimately led to nothing but pain and regret. In the end, my key takeaway was crystal clear. Never use company devices for personal matters, especially in sensitive situations like affairs. The consequences can be far-reaching and devastating, not just for your career, but for your personal life as well. My story became a cautionary tale for others, a warning about the risks of intertwining personal and professional lives. I knew I had to share my experience to help others avoid the same pitfalls. Looking back, I realized that the affair was never really about Harry or even about Warren. It was about me, about my inability to confront the dissatisfaction in my life and my failure to communicate my needs. I had chosen the easy way out, and it had cost me everything. Now, as I try to rebuild my life, I am determined to learn from my mistakes and to make better choices moving forward. It's a long road to redemption, but I know I have to take it one step at a time.